Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome back. We've got more people in the waiting room still bringing in. Kyle's coming in. Okay. And let me, yes, I want to replace. Okay. Let me start the slides and we'll get going. Moving my monitors around, so I'm trying to do things slightly different. This is not going to work. Okay. All right. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Control H for the chat room. Put the chat room somewhere where I can see it. Great. And minimize a few of these windows. Too many windows open. Okay, hopefully everybody is well. We're going to start up again tonight. So last time we talked about game loops and game frameworks. We had assignment 1B. Tonight we're going to talk more about assignment 1B, and we're going to talk about Unity project organization, getting that hooked up to Rieka, game art, and scene management if we have time. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? So as always, I'm trying to monitor the chat room and the participants windows. If you notice somebody is in the waiting room, please tell me in either chat or just unmute yourself. And also, if you have something to say, please speak up. I've got a lot more applications running on my system than I normally do. Let's hopefully are we supposed to design our own? Yes, you're supposed to do all these first assignments in 2D. And that's specified inside of the assignment thing, right in the title. It says 2D up in there. So last time I stayed after for office hours, and I showed a bunch of people what to do for hooking up the project. Let me bring that project up again inside of Unity Hub. We'll do it. So give me a second to bring that up. I did want to go over some things about project organization. Oh, that's coming up. So you want to make sure that you're not using the My Documents or one of the special blessed folders like that. You don't want to use the desktop either. So create a project or development folder off of the C drive or off of your My Computer. And then inside of there, do all your Unity projects inside of there. You probably already have an organization like that. Also, don't use special characters. If you want to put a space inside something, use an underscore or a tick character, a dash character, and try to avoid putting periods inside of the file names. Don't use any extended characters or anything special like that. So last time we talked about this game loop that we had. We had some really simplistic images of a game loop. We talked about what it does. It's basically three parts where it gathers user input during a game. It processes that input, makes some sort of decision, and then it renders it, and then it cycles back. The Unity game loop is a lot more complicated than that. And basically all game engines have this sort of thing going on in there. And tonight we'll actually demonstrate this. So there's a whole bunch of different parts in there. In last night's slides, you can read up on the details. I highlighted them with some ellipses and like a nice cyan color. And those are essentially functions that you need to know about, and you will become familiar with them. These functions, remember, are opportunities for which you can overload what Unity does and program your game inside of them. And you're going to need to understand why and where you're going to be doing this. So, for instance, like in the physics part of it, we have a fixed
If you want to
update,
make a video game but don't know where
and we also have an update inside of the game logic block over here. We have two different updates functions, one for doing physics and one for doing updates, because we need to do different things at different times. Also, these game loops happen many, many times a second, and the time between them may not be a constant. In fact, it's guaranteed not to be a constant. So we have a function that's called time.delta time that helps us use or makes use of that difference in time so that we can um, uh, uh, program our game objects with smooth movement. Is there any questions about that? Then we have the on gizmo and rendering, the UI rendering and stuff. So I'm going to pull up Unity Hub. I'm going to move some of these windows around. And let's see. This is the one I have for tonight's Wednesday. Yeah, Robin. Robin
in this video
asked
we're
in
going to
the
have a
chat
look at how
room
to
for the
create.
assignment for the new senior to play game. I gotta straighten out the details on that one. Yeah, it will also be very similar to the main menu, and I'll show you those things. We have to close some things down for performance reasons. Okay, so the last time we were here, we hooked up this project. If I click on the asset menu and I say show and explore, oh, this is not the same one. I'm sorry, I opened up the wrong project. Give me half a second. Down here's our project 1B for this class. Okay, so if you were good enough to stay after class, I did a bunch of talking about how to set up your project. I've demonstrated how to link your project to Rieka, and I also demonstrated how to resolve merge conflicts. So I have this project that's up there, and I'm going to let you guys look at it so that you can use it as a reference. So let me go down into here and expand the visibility so that if you are logged into Rieka, you'll be able to see this project as well. You can't use this project, but you can use it as a reference and understand what's expected of you and how to turn in your project. So it's called cs583 fall 2020 underscore price underscore Steve underscore project underscore 1B, and there's a Monday, Wednesday version of it, and there's a Tuesday, Thursday version of it. I'm trying to keep the two classes. Bashir asked, do you want us to create a new project right now? I've already done that, Bashir. You should go and look at the recording from last class where I walk you through doing all of that. So you'll have to catch up if you want to do that. But you can just sit back and watch and kind of nod your head and understand what's going on, and then try it for yourself. This isn't rocket science, but you do need to be shown a couple things the first time. So if you go watch the last class recording, you'll get to the point where you'll see this project. You'll be able to build this project on your own, on your laptop, and then use the information that's in the blank in your blank project to link up your project. Yeah, you can use just the same one, or you can create a 1B project, whatever you like. Bashir's asking that in the chat room. But anyhow, I have this project here, and I'm going to shut down PowerPoint. It's really not adding anything. I want to take away systems resources. Okay, so I have this project here, and here's the representation of the exact same project. That's the demo I was working on. So this is it. I've made a couple things inside of the asset folder. And if you show an Explorer, it'll open up a window on your system where you can see that you have your stuff inside of there. I'm going to pause and make sure that you pay attention to having a valid .gitignore file. It's really important that you guys understand how to do this, and your grade will not be as high as you want if you don't have a gitignore file. So here's what the .gitignore file looks like. The big thing about it, you can get it on GitHub. Just search for Unity gitignore file on GitHub. You'll find it. It's in the last video. The big thing about it is the file name must be exactly as you see here. And I'll show you with the properties window just so that you understand what I'm talking about. It has to start with a period. It has to be named gitignore, and it has to have no file extension. Okay. So basically what that does is that basically says I want a hidden file here that has no extension, and the Git's version control system will understand what to do with it when it's in there. When you do that and you push your code, you'll see like a small number of files that are up there, and you'll see an asset package that's inside of here as well. Basically, I've started with it. You'll see, here's my meta files for it. I haven't put any code into these things. If you go look inside of the asset, they're just basically empty files right now. They're shells for stuff, and we're gonna work on doing this. So if you look at the 1B rubric. That right here. This is what you basically have to do. And I'm going to take out this word here. So just makes it a little bit simpler in there. So if you look and you study the rubric on what you're being graded on, you get more points for original art than if you don't have any artwork. And that's because one of the learning objectives is to get you to understand what it takes to use 3D art or import 3D arts in a game. And then folder organization. So last class I talked about all the folder organization, and we'll be talking some more about that. Other things are frequently well-explained commits. One thing that you need to be aware of is that all of your commits are visible to us here, and we can just see them right as we go along here. And so I had 3 commits within the span of about 10-15 minutes So I had my initial commit to project to start things off, and then starting folder layout organization. And here's a view of the commits as they go along. And in your course of your career, you're going to learn how to use version control systems, and it should be second nature to you to use these tools as you go along. So we're going to start out and we're going to do some more stuff alongside of this. So I'm going to add some stuff inside of here. So, and I'm going to start adding some artwork and some scripts so that you can see some of the stuff. Okay, so first off, let's talk about importing, let's talk about this slide on the,
Professor, there's someone in the waiting room.
thank you. So let's talk about this slide here. Okay, so this slide here shows the 5 main functions that you need to be aware of for understanding how the game loop works within Unity. So let's go and implement these things inside of our project that we have all set up. Okay, I want to build a script inside of my program or my game project that shows me how to do this. Okay, so instead of using the web or these tools here, we're going to go right inside of here and we're going to use Unity to do it. First thing we're going to do, we have this layout for our assets. I've created a code folder, an editor folder, media folder, resources. The scene folder is already there, I believe, and sprites as well. So the code folder that we have in here, I'm going to create a new C# script. And it's going to give me a little dialog box here, and I'm going to call it game loop example v2, since this is the second time I've done it. And I'm going to double click on it as we go in there. And what that's doing behind the scenes is it's launching Visual Studio, the full community edition for me. It's starting up the project. It's linking it to Unity, and it's creating the script, and it's putting it in the editor right here. So I'm going to cut and paste the values from here. I already did this before, but I'm just going to take these functions inside of here, right up to this curly bracket here. And so I'm going to take this and I'm going to go over to Visual Studio, which is this tab here. And I'm going to delete the things that are in there, the default things, and I'm just going to paste these functions inside of there. This is straight off of the slides. Now, what this is going to do, there's a couple things you need to know. So first of all, you need to use a couple namespaces with the Unity editor. The correct version of Unity, Bashir is asking, is, I believe, 2019.4.10.f, something like that. It is the LTS version of Unity, the long-term solution. But I'm on 2019. Okay. You caught me, Bashir. Yes. And I'll show you a quick way of doing that. But I think for now, I'm going to just move on for this. And I'll show you how to use Unity Hub to switch between editor versions. First thing you need to use is a couple namespaces. These are there for you. The next thing you need to be aware of is the script name that you're writing must match the class name that Unity has in here. And it also must match the file name with a .cs for C# extension. So all three of those names have to be in alignment. And this you remember from your Java programming days in 107, 108, or 310. You got to have those guys in alignment, otherwise things don't work. Next up is this colon and mono behavior thing. What is that and why is that there? Well, this is provided by Unity, and mono behavior is the name of the game object, the class that Unity provides as a hook for game developers and programmers to use to have access to all of the stuff that's inside of the game engine. And there's a couple basic different types of classes that you inherit from in Unity, but mono behavior is the major one for game objects. You can also have scriptable objects. You can also create your own classes, just plain old pogos, pocos, posties, plain old C# classes, and then implement them there, just like you would in any object programming paradigm. So, and I've pasted these things inside of here. Next up is this function called debug.log. This is analogous to the system.println. So this is how you see something at the on the not on the screen, but on the console. Now, where is the console? So the console is over here inside of this section of the Unity editor down here. Any output that is output with a debug.log will show up down in here. Okay, and so what I've done is for each of the different functions, I've had it print out a string to the console that says, hey, I'm calling start, I'm calling awake, I'm calling update, I'm calling fixed update, I'm calling late update. So these are the ones that are going to be printed out. And we're going to observe the game loop by running this thing. Somehow I got a breakpoint put on in there, but we don't do it. So I'm just going to add a space to the end of one of these. Well, I don't have to. One thing you should be aware of is there's tight integration between Unity, Visual Studio, and, or I'm sorry, Microsoft Visual Studio and the Unity IDE. And so when you're using the one that comes bundled with Unity, all you have to do is basically start it up by double clicking on a script or editing a script. And then when you make your changes in there, all you have to do is save your script. And Unity will detect that you've saved the script, and it will launch a compile or build project on it, and it will build your script into an object and integrate it into the game. Does that make sense? Thank you, James, for posting that. And this is also in the Unity documentation, so you can just go read up in the Unity scripting documentation about that. So all I have to do is hit Command S inside of the Visual Studio window here, and Unity will do the right thing. And so I'm going to go over here and quickly go over here, and it's probably done it before I can do it. I can show it. But it has compiled everything that's in there. If I have some thing that is wrong, let's say I forget to close one of these braces and I save it, Unity is going to throw an error right here in the console. It's going to say, hey, there's something wrong here, and I'll give you the line number and the place in which the error occurred and some sort of error number. You can double click on the thing that's in here in the console window, and it will take you right to the line number where the mistake is. So if you reference something that doesn't exist, it will throw an exception. And when you save it and you go back using Alt-Tab to the Unity editor, it'll tell you that it's wrong. Now, if there's something logically wrong with your game, or like if you have a null pointer exception or something like that, you won't detect that until it gets called in the game. And that's a little bit harder to debug, but you can still do that. It's no problem. So I'm going to do a couple more things. I'm going to make sure, so we have our script, right? And I want to see it run. But what we have to do is we have to create something for it to run on. And I'm just going to delete this so you can see me recreate it. So I'm in our sample scene here, and everything in Unity is organized according to scenes with game objects within the scenes. And then each game object has a bunch of components that show up in the inspector on this section over here. So I'm going to right click in the scene hierarchy menu over here. And I'm going to say create empty. And what this does is it's going to create an empty game object, and I have the opportunity to name it. So I'm going to just call it game manager, just to give it a name, and I can't think of anything. Now, when you create something like that, and by the way, you can also just drag or use the file menu system up here to do these things. You can right click and do all of these things. You can also come over here and on a game object, you can add a component to an existing game object. So there's more than one way to do this. Now, what this does is like the name sounds, is I've created an empty game object. Now, game objects come with a couple things that you should be made aware of. So first of all, every game object in Unity comes with a transform component. Okay. The transform component is your hook to program or to call anything or components within that game object. So you get it for free. And we used to have to type like this game object dot transform to get it, but now there's some syntactic sugar where you can just reference the transform on. You can still say this dot game object, or you can say game object equals, but Unity will know that you intend to mean this game object that I'm currently working with. Assets code in 2019 is the same in assets script. Yeah, they're the same. I'm thinking of moving away from the scripts convention to the code convention, Robin asks in there. The reason being is I'm going to want to start doing more things with the Unity dots and their job compilers. So I'm going to have different types of scripts, not just in there. Both are acceptable. Both work the same. Okay, so I have a game manager and I want to add components to the game manager. So once again, Unity provides several mechanisms, if you will, for doing that. I can use the file menu here, and I can click on component, and I can add any of these. It's over 20, the list of 20 different types of component. And there's a lot of stuff that's physics and physics 2D you'll see in there. And they're very similar, except like the physics 2D rigid body is pretty much the same as the rigid body physics rigid body, except for this one here that I've highlighted takes vector 3n, and the physics 2D takes vector 2n for the 2D thing. There's a couple extra ones like springs, sliders, joints, a little bit harder to do in there. The UI, that's where we're going to be going towards with this class. There's scripts. Every script that you make kind of shows up here. You can add it just by simply selecting it there. The other ways that you can add it is you can drag it. So I can drag it from this asset, the project asset area, and I can add it to the game object by dragging it until it's highlighted blue like that. So that will also get something on there. Or I can select the game object and I can drag it into the inspector area. So notice there's a blue line that'll add this component in there. And I can also click on add component as well. So there's more than one way to do it. No way is more correct than the others. It's just what you're used to doing it. So I'm going to add this script. inside of there. So now this script is on that game manager. And when my code, my game is executed, I will start to see the results and the printouts from those debug.log statements in the console window down here. Now, there's one more thing that you may want to do. Your maximize on play in the game window may be checked, right? I'd like you to uncheck it at this moment so that you can see all of these windows at the same time. I'm going to make the console window a little bit bigger, and I'm going to click clear on play and clear on build. It's a little hard to see, but those are checked. Collapse, I'm going to uncheck that so it's a little bit darker, and you can see what goes on. So when I run this script, there's my yellow color for being in play mode. We're in play mode, and you can see it screaming these late update, fixed updates, and stuff. It's a little bit hard to see, but I've gotten over 1,000 lines because I'm talking over more than a second. So let's stop this and redo it again, but we're going to say collapse. And this time, if it's printing out the same string over and over again, it's going to update the little pill number that's over here on the right. And you can see that the calling the awake was called exactly once. It was only printed once in this thing. I can also pause it so that I can see it going through these things. You can see that calling fix update was called 777 times. Update was called 917 times. So not exactly the same, but the differences are there. And it is truly indeed going through these as well. Later on in the class, I'll introduce you to the debuggers that are involved with this. So I can set breakpoints over here, and I can create a debug build of this, and I can actually follow the execution of my code as it's going through these and inspect the variables that are in there. So that's pretty cool, but it's a little bit more for the class at this point. So now we have an idea of the game loop going on inside of Unity that we talked about last time. Does anybody have any questions about this? I'm going to pause for just a second so that we can all be on the same page.
Will we have to add anything to the script?
Will we have to add anything to the script? Or
yeah, like you copied and pasted like the stuff from the slide, but like we have to write to it.
So I say, yeah, you're going to have to write a lot of scripts. This is just a little example to get your feet wet. And hopefully if I have time, I'll show you some more scripts that we're going to write. Okay.
About how often should we push to our origin on the repository? Like after we just added this, should we like make a commit and then push it to the repository?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Who was that asked?
Brandon here.
Brandon. Okay. Thank you for asking that, Brandon. So yes, the rule of thumb is kind of like when you've accomplished some functionality. And there's also another rule of thumb that's like when you are at a stopping point. Now, a good pattern to follow as a software engineer is like in the morning, you pull down your code, or when you get started, you pull down your code to your local repository, and you create a branch. You check out a branch that you're going to be working on. Usually branches are checked out because you have some sort of ticket or bug that you're fixing. Yeah, I changed the game object to game manager, and it could be called whatever you like, but I'm foreshadowing there. And then like, when you go to lunch, you check in your code. You may not be finished working on your stuff. It may take several hours for you to solve the problem or fix that bug, but you'll do that. And like when you finish it and you're ready to show it to someone because you think it's done, that's the time for when you to push it back. Now, notice I said push it back. I have friends that commit like every 10 minutes, and commits are a dime a dozen. You just say git add and git commit. They have their ID set up to do it, and they just are constantly doing that. And that's because good software engineers have the ability to rewrite time and space. And so what I mean by that is the history of your commits. You can change that around if you know the right commands. And also the number of the commits, the space that it takes up, you can squash them down. So like I'll do stuff like, changed variable to, verb underscore noun. And then like 5 minutes later, the commit will be like misspelled noun, changing back to noun underscore verb, and I'll do nonsense like that, until I get it just about right. And I'll keep committing as I go along there. And then when I'm ready to check everything in and have a code review on it, I will squash all those commits. So you'll see the morning checkout commit, you'll see the midday about to go to lunch commit, after lunch commit, and then finally I'm done commit. And you'll just see those 4 commits, or just 2 commits, the actual one and the other. You won't see all of those temporary ones in there. Committing stuff is free, cheap, and easy. I recommend you do it as often as you can. And then the rule of thumb for pushing is push it to the cloud, because like imagine the situation where your laptop catches fire or something like that. Yeah, I'm going to go to that. Isaiah is asking, did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, it's Isaiah.
Isaiah wants to know, can you show us how to commit and how to use graphics we make from Photoshop? Yes, I will do that.
And
the office hours was all about committing and stuff. So please go review that.
could you also explain briefly the difference between a commit and a push?
Yes.
Again?
So a commit, they're very, very similar, but a commit essentially is a marker in time that you say, here, I'm going to actually save the repository at this point in time. A push is, hey, I want you to take all of the work that I've done here locally and put it back up into the cloud. Okay. So that makes sense. And I know I use cloud a lot, but it doesn't necessarily have to be cloud. It could be another section on your on a big server if you're using a large shared environment, or it could be something that's inside your organization. But the idea is it's not on your computer anymore. And so it's like a great way of backing up stuff and backing up your code. Because stuff does happen to computers. You take an update from Microsoft and all of a sudden your Windows 10 is brick. Oh, that never happens. Yeah, right. It does. So it's a way of protecting yourself against that. Okay. Any other questions about like the game loop and what I did here with the game manager? Here's an interesting fun fact. I did this whole code the other night, and I have 2 here. I can actually put 2 scripts on there, and it'll run. How many times do you think it will call awake? Yes, it's 2. How many times will it call the fixed update? Well, let's see. Bajillions. It depends. So, here, what it's doing is it's calling awake on this, let's say, example 2 script here, and then it's calling awake here on the second one. It does process them in order. There is an internal thing, and I'm not sure if there's like a race condition or if Unity processes them from top down, but sometimes you may have 2 copies of the same script on your game object. Unity doesn't care. It just looks through your game objects and says, okay, here's the list of things I'm going to be calling, and it goes through and does it. So let's not do that. I'm just going to take this off. There's a cogwheel over here, and you can like do stuff with it. So I'm going to select remove component, and there we go. All right, so all right, let's move on. Okay, code is great, but I want to do some graphics. So let's talk about graphics for a little bit. How much time do I got? Plenty of time. All right, so there's I'm going to show you two ways of getting graphics into your system. The first way is pretty much the lower scoring way. This is borrowing your friend's graphics. So we are the Google generation. So we're going to go to Google and we're going to search for D&D backgrounds. And I'm going to do an image search for D&D background. And there's all these cool things. How do I know which one to use? How do I know? And is there anything I should be considering? And why does it matter? Yes, it does matter. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to open up the tools portion of it and maybe, just the tools portion of it. And then notice how there's size, color, type, time, and usage rights. This is very important if you're actually going to be commercially releasing a game. Instead of having the all thing in there, I want you to say Creative Commons licenses. And essentially, this will get you an image search that will pull back licenses that or images that have a license that is free for you to use under certain circumstances. Now, it's up to you to understand the licenses that are there. But in general, the idea is like if you build this game and it's an amazing game, makes you lots of money, you don't want somebody suing you saying like, hey, you used my artwork when it was copyrighted and you didn't give me credit for it. So I want a part of your profits. That does indeed happen. So you need to be careful about that if you're going to be going into the commercial space. Also, it's just plain wrong to use somebody else's assets and not give them credit. And file type does matter, not so much, but we'll show you about that. So I like this purple one here. I used it. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to click on that one. And then the way the Google images, it gives you a little preview, but what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to open up the thing. And it's taken me to this website, Pixel Bay. And there's illustration stuff, and it looks like it wants me to join and log in and upload stuff, and there's a free download, and there's a Pixel Bay license here. So I can see here's our license, what's allowed. All content can be used free, commercial, non-commercials. Yay, that's what we want. You can make modifications to it. Attribution is not required, so that's pretty good. But in this class, I do want you to do your attribution. So what you're going to do is we're going to download this. And I'm just going to take the 1920 by 1280, and I'm going to download it. And it's going to ask me, where do I want to save this stuff? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Unity project for this class, which I believe is this one here. I'm going to go into my assets folder, and I'm going to go into the sprites folder. I'm just going to put it in there. I could put it in media and arts, but what I want you to do is I want you to notice what the Unity editor does when we do this. So I'm going to set this up. I'm going to move this over here, and I'm going to say save and switch over to Unity. And why is this not saving? Here we go. All right. So over here, it has brought it in to my area. And what I'd like you to do at this point is just take a moment and create inside of your project folder under assets, right in here. I want you to create a new text file, and I want you to call it bibliography. Text. And inside of this, as you're collecting your stuff, I created a folder. Oh, classic. Let me create a new text document. and I don't need to say .text. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit that right as I collect this. So here's Notepad, and I'm going to put the date. So today is the 23rd of September, 2020, and it's 1840, is it? 22. Oh, we got plenty of time. 18. So I know when I downloaded it. The URL that I used, I'm just going to go back to the browser, and I'm going to copy the URL. And I'm going to also say the file name. And I can get that in one of several ways. Show in Explorer. And I can just get it like this. Copy that. Now, if I was much smarter and not stressed at like lecturing and doing this at the same time, I would put this like right in MLA format. Usage rights, you might want to say something like clear. And so anyhow, this is a guide for you. You can even like name these like, image 1, and then image 2. So keep track of your sources as you're downloading them. Don't depend on your history or anything like that. And better still, put it in APA format as you're doing that. Okay, so let's go back to Unity. And I want to raise a couple points to you. So Unity does some amazing things when you drop files into it. It looks inside of it. I showed you the meta files, how they have like a GUID that's assigned to them, but it does much more than that. It does that pre-processing part of the game loop when you import your assets. And so when you do this, I'm clicking on this not in the scene menu or in the hierarchy. I'm clicking on this in the project assets folder, and it brings up an inspector for that type. And there's a few things that you need to be aware of. First of all, you may see it like this. You may not see the preview. If you don't see the preview, there's this bar down here. If you click on it and drag it, it'll pull it in for you. All right. And then there's a couple different things. It will analyze your file and try to do the right thing with it from the start, but you may have to adjust it. The big thing right now is this first texture type. It used to be set to default, and that was a pain. And notice there's different things inside there. It could be normal maps if you're trying to do like heights and stuff. You want it to be set to Sprite, 2D, and UI. If it's a picture, that's what you want. The only other acceptable choice is like editor for legacy stuff, but we don't use that anymore. And then there's special types that you can learn about later. There's sprite mode, and that's important. Whether you're pulling in something that's part of the sprite animation or if it's just a background like this. We'll get more into the animations at a future lecture. And then there's this pixels per unit, and this is very important. Inside of Unity, Unity has like an idea of size, and it's important. And their concepts of size is 1 Unity pixels equals 1 meter. And so this is coming in at 100 pixels per unit. If you want it to be bigger than what it comes in, you'll make this number bigger. And you don't see it right here. If you want it to be smaller, you just make it smaller. And then there is a couple other things. I'll come back to this when I show it to you. There is this advanced tab in here, and that's has the input texture alpha. That's if you want to bring in a transparent image, which we're going to do in just a moment. Alpha is transparency. Then there's this wrap mode and this filter mode. And basically filter mode If you're going to be doing like sprite animations, you want it to be no filter. If you've got a big graphics like that, you can filter it down. Then you can repeat it, you can mirror it, you can do all sorts of funky weird things. And there's even this sprite editor that you can go in and make adjustments on it inside of there. We don't have to do it for this image, but that's what you do. And you must click the apply button down here for it to finish this process. Now, that's a lot there. So the important thing to remember is that when you import an asset into Unity, you must make sure that it's processed correctly. Now, I'm going to want to put this inside of my scene. And I've got my scene here. It's kind of weird space because of the size of the monitor that I'm looking at. But I want to drag this thing in so that I can see it. And so there, all I have to do is just drag it in, and I have it inside of my thing. Now, there's several tools that you can use to drag it around. Like for instance, this is my game view. This is what the user is going to see. And I may not want my image positioned exactly at this point. So I have these tools up here that I can use to like move the camera around, that first one there. I've got these arrows here, and this is for actually moving an object. I'm just left clicking on this tool, this gizmo here, and I can adjust it up and down. The next one over here is the rotate tool. And it doesn't make sense in 2D, but I can rotate it around and do stuff like that if I want to tweak it that way. I'm just going to hit undo. There's the scale. So like, let's say if I want it to be scaled in this manner here, I can do that just by stretching it out one way or another. It will change the aspect ratio, make your image look funky. You may not want to do that. There's a better way. Then there's this rect trans tool here. That's for you UI stuff. We'll come back to another. And then there's these two new ones: move, rotate, selected, scaled objects, and available customer editor tools in there. We won't talk about those now. These editor tools, you can cycle through them by laying your left hand on your keyboard and putting your fingers on the QWER key, the QWERTY keys, and just picking them, and then right-clicking with your mouse. And all you have to do is be inside the editor there. So it's a little bit quicker to work with. Now, this image isn't stretched out as much as I liked. So let's go back and let's like re-import it and mess around with stuff like this. So I'm going to say pixels per unit, and I'm going to just adjust this to 500, and let's see what it does. And I'm going to hit the apply button, and it didn't do anything because this is the one that's inside here. I'm going to delete it, and then I'm going to bring it in here again, and it's much smaller. So I want to go the other way with the pixels per unit. So let's try this again. Let's go into here, go into the thing, and I'm going to say 10. And now I'm going to hit apply, and I'm going to drag, and it applied it. And now it's much, much bigger than that. This little white rectangle is my image in there. So obviously I want something between 100 and 10. So let's try like 77. And I'm just doing this off the cuff. I should have probably looked at that. And that does look pretty good. So maybe 85 is the number that I want. And I can also, at this point, I can scale it a little bit. So let's do that. Let's zoom in on it. And I'm going to scale it so that it is beyond the size of this. So I'm going to take the scale tool here, and I'm going to select the image, and I'm just going to drag it out. And it's okay if it's a little bit more than the image. And that's kind of what I'm looking for there. And maybe I'll scale it down just a little bit. And I'm also going to drop it down just to position it there. So boom, now I've got a background. That looks great. All right. So at this point, I would go to the editor, and I would get to the top, the root of my directory where the git and the .getting more files are. And I'm going to open up my git bash here at this location. It's going to open up a window. I'm going to bring the window here, and I'm going to make the font just a little bit easier so larger so that it's easier for you to read. And let's make it like, I think 16 was good, 14, 16, yeah, that's probably good. Okay, all right. So the last class I did this a lot, so I'm just going to go through this kind of fast so you can see it once. So I'm going to say git status to find out where I am. I'm on branch origin master. It says, hey, there's some changes that are not staged for commit in red there. Basically, I have something, I have a sample scene that I've changed. And I also have this untracked files, this the bibliography, the code, and inside of sprites, I have that sprite that I put inside of there. So I'm going to say git add and then period to add everything in this directory and recursively into every directory that's there. And I'm going to type git status again just to see where we are. Now we have green. Green must be good. And actually it is in this case where it has changes to be committed. These are files that I've changed, but I have not committed yet. So I need to commit them. So I'm going to say git commit -m for message. And I'm going to open a double quote and I'm going to say added a sprite for background and code example. Now notice I'm not saying which files. I'll be able to see what files. I want to know why I made this commit, not what I changed, why I changed it. So I'm just going to do that, and it's going to turn everything white, and white is good in this case. And these changes live here on my laptop. They don't live inside of Rieka. And if I could find my Rieka window in the mess that I've got up here, yeah, these are probably somewhere around here. Nope, that's not it. Here we go. So there's my Rieka. If I look at my commits, that's not on there yet. So I have to push these commits to Rieka, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to say git push. You don't need the -u in this case. And I'm going to say origin and master, and that will push it up to Rieka. And what it's doing off screen is it's asking me for my credentials for Rieka. That's driving me nuts. I got to figure out how to cache those. I have to type my password a lot. And then it's going to push origin to master. Everything went well. It should say, okay, you've written those objects. And if I come over here and I refresh the page, you'll see there's one more commit in here, added sprite for background code example. Here it is in the graph. And if I look at the files, they're up there now there. Okay, any questions about that so far?
Hey, Professor, about that that git push you just did.
Mm-hmm.
Do we share that root username credential with you, or do we?
No, that's mine. What you'll see is what's your name, or your last name, or your email?
Grant.
Okay, I'm gonna go look. Robert Grant?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can go in and I can look at every single project and stuff you have, and I'm gonna look at your blank folder. Now, if we look here, I can see that it's set up. Oh, I gotta impersonate you. Hold on, this is annoying as well. So now I'm looking at Rieka as you, and notice it has your global username as Robert C. Grant and your RC Grant. And on Rieka, it has your Robert Grant username filled in there, and it knows to link up to this project. And that's why you don't initialize it with a README, so you have these instructions in there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do this use case in here. You're going to follow this path inside of here, and you're going to cd into your project 1B folder, type git init, add the .git ignore right at this step here, and then type git remote add origin, and git add period, git commit, and then the git push, and you'll get caught up to where we are. This is all in last night's video, so if you go and look at those, you should be able to see it being done.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Shemshing Chan, I just answered your question from the chat room. When will the lecture be uploaded? Okay, Natalia. So there's been incidents with Zoom and lectures and stuff, and it's going to be between 48 hours, possibly even if something happened longer than that. So I'm not uploading lectures immediately. I don't sit there on my phone waiting for Zoom to get done. I have a lot of other things that I'm doing in my life. You should come to class and you should watch the stuff at the time there. If you can't make it, it's a convenient service, and I'll try to get it up within 48 hours. And people are in the waiting room. Interesting. Thank you for that. Last night video should already be posted on Blackboard under recordings. You should use Blackboard. Oh, it's not up yet. It'll be here. Okay.
So that screen you're on now where it has the instructions, does it only show you that when it's initially empty?
When you initialize it without a without a README, and that's why I specified that in the assignment. Hold on, let me apologize for that. And this is why I made you do the assignment this way, so that you can have these instructions in a repository that you're not going to mess with, and you can refer back to these. The only thing that change is the name that's listed here. You'll have a different project name. So if you called your project, My Super Happy Fun Project, the remote origin here would be Rieka Robert Grant / My Super Happy Fun Project.git. That's the only thing that'll change. The reason why I made you do it this way. All right, good questions. I'm almost out of time. I'll stay for like 2 more minutes. Then I got to get going for the next lecture, maybe 5 minutes. I got 5. I'll stay to 6:50, and I'll show you the next part. Okay, all right, the next part. All right, so when we look at the assignment and we look at the amount of points that we get for it, you'll realize that you'll score higher if you make your own original art. So how do we make our own original art? Okay, so I've been a long fan of some software called the GIMP. And this is like the open source version of Adobe Photoshop. You can use this if you don't want to pay for Photoshop. If you look down here, there's also Photoshop that people have searched for. So you can use that as well. And then there's this new up and coming thing called Krita. Krita is like the next new editor that's coming up for doing image editing and stuff like that. I decided I'm going to try it. And I'm going to go and look at it and see what I can do with Krita. Let me do that right now.
If it's just like a background or something, can we like take a photo of something?
Yes, you can, but you are going to have to do some image manipulation.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to show you here. Okay. So this is what we're going to make. We're going to make something similar to this. Let me close the other background so that we can focus on that. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say new, and I'm going to say new custom document. I chose 1600 by 1200 because it's the 3:4 aspect ratio. This was set to 100. I bumped it up to 300 just to give me a lot more resolution inside of there. And that pulls up something that looks like this. Um, you can get Krita from krita.net. So I have this, and it's basically, you should understand, it's a raster editing thing. So I have a background here. It's a raster graphics editing software, and I have a layer here. I have this toolbox over here. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a button so that we can use as our menu system. All right. So there's brushes, and I can use these brushes to draw stuff that's kind of hard to see in there because I guess I'm drawing at a really small size. I can change my size a little bit bigger. I can right click and I can use a different pen to draw with it. So let me undo these changes here. We'll do that. Now, the first thing you're going to do is we want to make a button that's symmetrical and we'll be able to type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the mirror tool and the horizontal and the vertical mirror tool. That leaves these grid lines inside of here. And now anything that I draw inside of here will be mirrored to these 4 quadrants that are going on in there. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to make sure that I'm drawing in black. That's this little thing over here. You don't have to draw in black, but it's just going to make it easier. So as I draw, these things are reflected in the 4 quadrants like a mirror. And I'm going to do some sort of a whoop-de-whoop up here like that. And I'm going to come down and maybe make something that's a little bit wiggly waggly so that it looks artistic. Okay, just like that. That's the first thing that I want to do. And I'm going to turn off the mirror stuff. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to select some colors. Now, I know I want this to have like a D&D kind of retro feel. So I'm thinking I want like a scroll or something like that. And I want something kind of darkish. So I'm looking down here at these dark values. And I'm going to select this, let's say this dark one here for my first value. Then I'm going to click on my background value here. And I'm going to go down there and I'm going to select something that's real similar to that one that was there. Maybe a little on the lighter side just so that I have that. So I have that. Next, I'm going to select the gradient tool over here. So I'm going to select the gradient tool and I'm going to go up to the gradient tool options and I'm going to select the linear option inside of there, no repeat. And I'm going to click here and this was set so that it had a transparent, foreground to transparent. I'm going to select foreground to background so that it goes from the first color that I picked to the second color that I picked. So now, if I click in here and drag the mouse down with the left mouse button, it will create a gradient in the direction that I'm dragging. But it filled the whole screen. I don't want that. I want it to fill the stuff that's inside the really cool outline that I did so I can make a button. So what I have to do is I have to select this contiguous selection tool. And I'm going to select that. It's the wand select tool. And I'm going to click inside of the area that I've done. And if you notice, I was careful not to leave any openings or gaps. So this is all one contiguous area. It's a little hard to see, but I clicked inside there and, excuse me, now there's these dashed lines inside of that. So I'm going to want to take that. And now I'm going to go back to the gradient tool and I'm going to try the gradient tool. I'm going to select from the very bottom and I'm going to drag it straight up almost to the very top. Now I get the gradient that I want and I have this background that's on the other layer like that. So that looks pretty cool for like some sort of a scroll or some sort of button-like effect. So yeah, let's do this. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to export that. And I'm going to just select the export tool here. And I have a whole bunch of different ones. So this is now going to be button, I think 8 that I've tried on there. And I'm going to select PNG image. There's only 2 types of transparent images that we want, and PNG is one of them. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to click save, and we get the PNG selection, the export options tool here. This was initially down here, a large size, maximize that all the way up to there. And I'm going to store the transparency. And it's going to ask for the transparent color, and I should make that white. And I had to play around with this to get it right, so hopefully I've got all the settings properly. And I'm just going to say OK, and that should save my file. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so white is in the background there. And I'm going to go look at that on my file system where I have it squirreled away. And I happen to know that I put it into the demos folder. And there I have it. I didn't get the transparency correct. So let me go back and mess with that. And I'm kind of running out of time here. So I want to make, I've selected the bottom layer over here, the background layer, and I'm going to turn the opacity all the way down. And I'm going to select this again, and I'm going to export it once more. And I'm going to give the same 9 and replace it just to see that. And store the alpha as transparent color. Transparent color is white. So I have that, and away it goes. And I don't think it stored it properly, but anyhow, you get the idea there. I'm going to just punt and go to the previous version that I've had here. Okay, and that's all I have for the evening. I'll pick up with this when we start next time. And next time I'll also show how to do the menu system as well. Okay, do you guys have any questions before I get going here?
Yeah, I'm pretty proficient in Photoshop, but sometimes I use images from the web. Would that be considered original still or no?
No,
But
if you,
I still like put artistic work into it, but like it's
so
not
that's a good,
entirely, you know what I'm saying?
yeah. So if you've downloaded it from the web and then you drew a mustache on the Mona Lisa, it's still Leonardo's Mona Lisa as interpreted by you. So I want to know that, you know, hey, I started with the Mona Lisa, and then I drew this really cool mustache on top of the Mona Lisa. That's my original art. You'll get more credit than if you just used the Mona Lisa.
Basically, the more original art you have, the better.
Correct. All right, guys, that's all I got for tonight. I will see you next time around, and be safe out there.
Professor,
Yes.
when will these recordings be posted?
Within 36 to 48 hours.
Okay, and this is due next Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Monday we'll talk all about how to do the menu system, and we'll have it done by then. Okay, good night, everybody.